All right, you're all very welcome to the 24th of May plan weekly team meeting. Let's see. Got a lot of read-only items today. Natalia's putting one in at the top, but it's read-only. Awesome. And I have the first item. 3 items down. Yeah, so I just wanted to highlight this because if you don't know, probably the maximum number of release post items I've seen the stage contribute to the release post in the last sort of 5 to 6 months has been 6. Sort of seem to be pretty consistently 5, 6 every month. It's 10 this month, and even then, that's if you roll all the AI items into one and consider it as one feature. So I don't know why this happened, but I just wanted to take a minute, like, to recognize it and celebrate the win. Because not only that, but one of the items is the top item in the release post. We got tons of improvements to work items, and some pages improvements as well. So it's really like a whole cross stage effort. Like, so really, really nice. So yeah, pat yourselves on the back, take the win. We didn't get team day, but we got a massive win on the release post. So there you go. My next item's read only, but like it's an MR that's been open for 24 hours. If I don't get any feedback on it, I'm gonna just merge it after the meeting because I think it's probably a positive change. And we're into demos. So do we have Mario?
Yes. Hey everyone. Not a demo, just wanted to share with you all, I guess, that I have been actively working on removing the issue type column. It's a lot of work. It's used in everywhere in the application. We're at a point where we already have the work item type ID column in sync. I fixed a bug where it was out of sync. We backfilled again for the incident type. So I think we're at a place where that shouldn't be getting out of sync again. We have a method that checks at least with a callback. But anyway, I'm working on removing the scopes. I guess that's the most delicate part, as it can have performance implications. So all of that is going behind the feature flag, at least the scopes that now join with the the work item types table. And yep, I hope I'm already working on an MR with a test where I actually remove the column to see it where it fails. We are down to 128 jobs failing from 300, so that's good. So just that. I just wanted to share that at least at the stage level, we should definitely not use the issue type column for new scopes, for new anything. We are at a point where soon we'll have to ignore the issue type column and just focus on the work item type ID. Hopefully in this release 16.1, and then in 16.2 we'll be able to drop the column for good, hopefully. So yeah, that's it. Just a heads up, so you can share as much as you can that that we shouldn't use that column. I have played some pieces of code that will safeguard the usage of the column in some places, but there are some where I can't. I would have to write, I guess, database callbacks and things like that, procedures to prevent it. So just that, just so everyone is aware. That's it.
That's pretty awesome. Thank you, Maria, for working on this.
Okay, I have the next item. So this was shared a couple of plan meetings ago where we were considering to use fine-grained mutations to update certain aspects of work item rather than using work item update as a single mutation to do the changes. Earlier, it was a performance problem that work item update mutation was slower because it was doing a lot of validations. But now we have ran into permission issue as well. So we noticed it for with emojis first, but turns out it is impacting notifications and to-dos as well. So if you know, you can visit an issue or an MR or an epic and react with an emoji, even if you are not a member of that group or a project. Similarly, you can add those items in your to-dos as well. And you can turn on notifications from the sidebar for these objects as well. In case of work items, you cannot do it unless you are a reporter on that project, which means that even if you are a guest user for that project, you will not be able to do it. So for now, we are able to fix it at least for emojis because we have a mutation available, which is more of a generic mutation around emojis. So we can fix it for emojis where anyone, as long as they can see that work item, they can add an emoji reaction. But notifications and to-dos still do not work. So we would either need to determine whether we want a consistency across work items and issues and MRs. And if we want that consistency, we would need to create dedicated mutations for it, which are much more permissible and do not require any kind of permission check. And just as long as user is logged in, they can either add a to-do for that work item or turn on notifications. So we have had some participation in that discussion issue. I'm looking for more inputs, especially now that we have two use cases around this entire problem, performance as well as permissions. Feel free to chime in and discuss async. And we can move on to next item unless anyone wants to voice their opinion within the call itself.
Eugenie, do you want to verbalize?
Yeah, I would say it's a quick thing. Basically, we also have individual mutations to perform the notifications and the to do, what's the other one, action. And the reason we're not proposing to use it is because there's still we haven't agreed that we can divert from using the main update mutation. So if we agree that we can make exceptions that we can just fix these three problems with changing the queries we use in the front end. We haven't agreed, and I think this is something we should agree as the whole team, because there might be more reasons where new widgets will require different permissions. And the base permission for this mutation is update work item. And so if we want to include any widget inside that mutation that requires less than updating the whole item, that wouldn't work either. So we would have to agree either using individual mutations for some widgets or changing the way we perform permissions in the update mutation.
I kind of thought we already made the decision on this, that when we can use the big one, we do, but when we need something specific, there's not a problem with that, particularly for performance or permission reasons or anything like that. So, yeah, I would say go ahead.
Yeah. On that, I mean, I did get involved a little bit on the issue discussion. I think that, yeah, we can all agree that separate mutation is fine. I think we have discussed that in the past too. I think that more important than that was if we should always use the update service for this as a place where we always do updates on a work item, and I do think that's important. I mean, I've seen it in the past in one of my changes where I changed something directly, then just to realize that we weren't creating system notes and sending notifications and things like that. So that's something the update service always takes care of. And I know this was also part of the discussion. The update service can be slow. So maybe what we should be working on is on making it faster. Henrik raised an issue where one of the slowest parts of the update service is that we always fetch old labels, and probably lots of them. So maybe we can work on improvements on those things. Probably we shouldn't fetch labels if we're not going to update them. So a simple check on the params where if the params don't include label updates, then don't fetch the old ones, something like that. So I still agree that we should be using the update service. But yeah, the smaller mutations should be fine too.
Yeah, I guess in that case, we can go ahead and open tracking issues to fix notifications and to-dos for work items and start using new mutations. assuming that the mutations which are already available are compatible with work items, just like emoji one had. Yep. Thanks a lot.
What are we saying? That individual mutations sometimes miss system notes and to-dos?
I mean, if you write an individual mutation that, for example, changes the notification status directly, so you call something like work item update notification status. I don't know the name of the method. So then you are not using the work item update service that does a lot of checks. We even do permission checks, I mean, on the policies. And this is something that was also raised before for the issues create service, for example. So in general, I think we should use the services for many things. Also, sometimes we fix something that we find a bug or a regression. And if we use the services, there is a single place where we can fix it. Opposite to, we don't know in what mutations we are updating something. And yeah, I mean, having the service is like a single point of keeping that logic. And we could also think about improving the update service. I was thinking that maybe we can even change the update mutation, the update work item mutation to not check the permission, but then have the service check. I mean, do permission checks on some of the attributes. This is something we already do for issues in some places. I know for the issue type, we check if the user can create a certain issue type. And if not, we default to the default issue type, things like that. And those are things that the service handles. So I can imagine with the framework we already have for widgets, I mean, we can probably place this permission check at the widget service, something like that, and then not check, do a general update work item check on the mutation. But yeah, I mean, I guess to fix what you were saying, Kushala, I think that the best way is definitely to just create 2 new mutations now and fix it. If possible, use the service.
Yeah, I think in case of notifications and to-dos, system note updating won't matter because we don't show system notes if someone subscribed to a work item update via notifications or added it to to-dos. But yeah, as we start introducing new widgets, we may have to reconsider that and think of creating new mutations.
Okay, so is the request here for feedback on that issue?
No, I think it was short discussion and we have decided a way forward. So I think that's okay.
Cool. Okay. Okay, then next.
Is that documented anywhere? We should document it in either in the work items blueprint or
I think
some of the documentation.
Yeah, I think it's worth updating work items blueprint for this. In fact, all these 3 widgets are missing, and I have a to-do for this where I'll be updating work items blueprint to add these 3 widgets that we have introduced.
Mind doing this update too?
Yeah. I'll include all of it as well.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
I think the decision to sometimes use a global mutation versus individual ones, I think that should actually be more of a general GraphQL decision, not just a work items decision. That's something that it's not work item specific.
We had a discussion about it, I think, around a year and a half ago, and general decision was opt for fine-grained mutations whenever possible. For work item, we have a little bit different architecture. So coarse-grained mutation made more sense from the start. And we just diverging from this for performance reasons, which are obviously important. But overall, if I recall correctly, we decided on fine-grained mutations.
We decided fine grain mutations? Really?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. We had one huge coarse grain mutation. It was for issue, for update issue, and it did cause a few performance problems back in times. And it was very different from MR, but that's just a little off top, sorry.
Yeah, and I think this is actually documented at the GraphQL level. I mean, the usage of fine grain, I'm trying to find it. Well, the documentation on GraphQL says it's acceptable to have both fine and coarse grain mutations. But to be careful that too many fine grain mutations can lead to organizational challenges. Yep. That's what the GraphQL in general documentation says.
Yeah, I do remember the conversation that I think you're talking about, and I think it was in Slack, and I wonder if we ever updated it or if the update that Mario's talking about was from before that discussion.
I think that's from before.
And we'll never know if it was in Slack.
I don't remember, but I do remember the outcome of that discussion being me creating a mutation to update widgets that in the end I had to revert. But yeah, I remember it being we prefer fine grain mutations at least when we started working on work items.
Then why are we diverted on this then? Why is this? Why are we not using fine grain here?
Because we have very different front-end architecture on the work item comparing to other applications. And we are having fine grain queries on most applications, while work item has a coarse grain query on the root. So updating work item in general was the easiest way for front-end to handle, honestly. We don't need to do any manual updates for the front-end. But again, there are performance reasons why we start diverging from it.
I think another...
Which we're seeing now as well.
I think that it should really depend case by case, because for some attributes or widgets, it makes sense to have them as part of generic update mutation. If you need atomicity, for example. I started with hierarchy widget as the first one, and I had to opt. I had to choose the generic update mutation simply because there are use cases when you need to set parent when you create the work item. Yeah, so you cannot first create work item and then try to set some attribute, parent attribute on it. You need to do it together. So depending whether a widget needs atomicity with, for example, create action or update action, it might also be reason whether to use the same mutation or separate them.
So it sounds like any documentation update is going to be more complex than just recommending one or the other. So, Kushal, maybe do you want to make a proposal and then copy everyone in to make edits on it? Because it's like possible that we shouldn't recommend one or the other, but specifically for work items, give examples of when you might choose one over the other. And then, like Natalia, if you want to weigh in with performance concerns, like if any of the guidance is pushing people in one or other direction, like you know, weigh in with concerns on, you know, why we should favor one or the other in certain circumstances, and we should get to something roughly that everyone can agree with, right? All right, cool. Looking forward to that, MR. Cheers. Next one's for me. So we had this discussion 2 weeks ago about MR reversions, and I took a lot of feedback in this meeting, and I'm thankful for it. I have thought about it a lot, and I think like measuring MR reversions, even if it does have some positive aspects, like the negative ones are just too kind of deceptive. It's not something like it gives us information to know how many MRs are being reverted, but I kind of agree with the critical feedback that It's not necessarily something that is good or bad, and there may be a certain amount that's optimal that is not zero, right? Like in some cases, it's the right thing to do, and so on. So instead of targeting MR reversions for efficiency, like I think a better thing would be to try and address some of the like outcomes of certain times when we revert MRs. And the two I'm going after are, first of all, regressions that cause usability issues or just broken features. To have some kind of lightweight RCA process that, and I mean lightweight, I don't mean an FCL where we like block the team for 5 days for every single little thing that goes wrong, but just to try and learn something from every time we break something for customers, like would be enough for me. I think we could trial something for 2 to 3 months, see if it has an effect. Like if I don't know what, I had a quick look through our backlog and we generate maybe 1 regression per month, at least assuming we're following the process of labeling them correctly. So this shouldn't be like a huge deal, but it should, like, if we get it right, reduce the amount of breakages we're delivering to customers, which would be nice. And then we can try it for a couple of months, and if it's really a terrible experience and it doesn't do anything, we can scrap it. But if there are improvements to make, we can make those as well. And then the second one is reducing time spent in broken master. You may like see some charts knocking around that are fairly new from the engineering productivity team. This month there was an issue with I think it was pipeline stability. So if you just look at like the last month, the contribution of flaky tests is very low. But on any given month, they make up 50% of broken master, and 25%, I think, of those are flaky tests related to plan. It's not something that anyone's done wrong. I think just the product area that we have is maybe difficult to test, or maybe that it's been a resourcing thing over the years, whatever. But like, we all know what broken master does, right? Like, you can't merge anything while it's broken. And if you see the number of times that it's broken each week, like, it really feels like something we could be improving as a company. So I'm not really sure how to tackle this yet. I don't want to load teams with feature spec fixes. I just want to know, like, are there tests that we can quarantine? Are there things that we can do? Can we rally some support from other teams maybe to help us like clean up some of the tests that are breaking in our product areas? So if you have any ideas, please like weigh in on this KR, because currently I'm a little short of ideas on how to improve this one. I just know it's something we probably should. So yeah, so you're very welcome to feedback on either KR, and in particular, I'm looking for suggestions from people who like work on the code every day and can help to, like, in the end of the day, like, these are hopefully going to make everyone's lives a bit easier. Like, if you don't have to deal with like reverting MRs, or you don't have to deal with broken master as much, like, hopefully it's a little bit of a nicer development experience. So yeah, give me your thoughts, and if you have any now, like, I'd love to hear them as well.
In the Periscope, is there any good list of flaky tests related to plan and the fixes that we can go through easily? Because I think this is what we probably need to do, like go through every fix and see like what happened, and then maybe categorize it, like throw it into AI. That's what they do now, and then categorize it.
So if you look at subgroup specific triage issues, you'll be able to find a lot of those flaky failure related issues. I think the triage report is created on weekly basis. I can maybe find a link to one of the recent issue from product planning, and it'll have a few of those flaky tests. The thing is that most of those flaky tests are already quarantined, and some of those are like very hard to reproduce consistently, so that you'll be able to find and actually fix that failing test. And that's the nature of flaky tests, that they don't always fail and don't always pass.
Yeah, there's also a classification there as well. Things like unreliable DOM selector, right? So a lot of these are kind of already classified. So if a certain class of these are going to be easy to fix, like unreliable DOM selectors, probably hard to reproduce, but quite easy to fix, I would imagine. So like if we can come up with something, then all the better, you know, like to classify and kind of find the ones that are kind of easily dealt with.
And one more question about the 20%. How much of the tests are based on plan? Because like, are we just a statistical outlier, or because we write the most tests? Maybe.
That's a great question. And exactly why I caveated with that it wasn't necessarily something that we've done wrong. Could be something we're doing right. But nevertheless, like nobody else is going to fix them. So, well, I don't know. Maybe somebody else will fix them if we could rally some support or something. But I think first of all, like I just need to understand more about what's going on here and why so many of them are attributable to our stage.
Just a note on that. Last week I reviewed some MRs on an effort. I'm not sure what the team is, but they are working on trying to fix flaky specs. So one thing they did is to wait for requests on methods like click button, click link, and they actually reduced the capybara timeout. So we might actually see an improvement the next couple of weeks, or we might already be seeing it. Not sure if anything has changed since last week.
Mario, if you wouldn't mind, could you leave that in a comment on the KR form?
Yes, I'll paste a link to the MRs.
Awesome, thank you. We started with 3 read-only items and we finished with a read-only item. I don't know if we should be verbalizing these or not, so but please go ahead and read them. I'm going to stop the recording. Anyone who wants to stay on is welcome to do so. We did, I mentioned above though, like there is a proposal to turn this into a social call if there is no agenda. Don't know if that also means we finish the agenda early, but